I'm so thankful that she said yes, and Chris Malone's back here saying ha ha ha.
I played the long game with him.
Ooh.
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. All right, well, it's my privilege to introduce our speaker to us today, James Dykstra. His mission is to improve lives with AI tools. He connects investors, enterprise leaders, and partners who share the vision of advancing AI in the ways that make businesses stronger, smarter, and more human. After more than a decade shaping global strategy and AI monetization at Microsoft and Amazon, he now devotes himself fully to building companies that help organizations to put AI to work. And on that note being said, at the conference I was at with the Rotary back in September, there was an AI class offered, and I took it, and it's unbelievable, you know, what you can do and what you can't do. I mean, I'm still amazed. I'm still using it a little bit, trying to learn it. It's kind of difficult, but I hope to get a clearer understanding of the day. So, folks, let's give a warm Pompano welcome to James Dykstra. James?
Well, honored to be here. Thank you all very much for having me. As you know, I am extremely passionate about this technology. There's a lot to it, and it can be pretty tricky. And so I want to make this an opportunity for everyone to ask questions, to really meet you where you're at, with answering things that you're interested in hearing. I can talk about each industry's application of AI, from healthcare to financial services to retail to manufacturing. But I don't think a lot of folks in this room are particularly keen on hearing about all of those nuances, but rather I want to provide kind of an overview of, well, what's it good for, what does it not really do so well, and then turn it over to you all to learn from you about what your priorities are and what you'd like to hear. Does that work for everybody? All right. Pardon the QR codes. My head of design had to stick those in there. So yeah, we've already heard my background, but done a bunch of projects in AI. Founded one company that implements AI solutions, does data engineering, software engineering work. Another company that just sells AI as a service to businesses, automating coding processes, and really helping sales teams. And then I've also worked in industry-specific applications of AI for both Microsoft and Amazon over the past 10 years. I was in metals and mining and pricing and finance before that. Basically, AI can be applied to each part of our lives, but you really got to narrow it down and say, what am I trying to solve? So the folks in oil and gas who help power our cars and keep our homes warm during these frigid winters here in Florida, they're interested in understanding where the oil is and how they can get at it economically. And there are AI models that process what are called seismic workloads to understand, well, where is that oil? So just think about it as applying a machine brain to solving practical problems. And each industry has their own priorities. In healthcare, we helped roll out radiology insights at Microsoft that looked at all of your scans and say, well, this is cancer, this is not cancerous, and really help improve the amount of people who can be served and the cost of providing healthcare services to people. Because right now there's a huge bottleneck in the number of radiologists and the number of scans that need to be processed. So this technology for them and those folks in healthcare, it's a godsend. There are all sorts of applications in agriculture, looking at satellite imagery and figuring out how you need to better serve the land, processing big data. In manufacturing, you can set up sensors throughout your operation and actually run simulations about how to improve it, all theoretical. So there are all these neat applications. So when you think about AI, when I talk about AI, there's what I think of as retail AI, or really consumer-facing AI. And those are the products that we're all familiar with, such as the ChatGPTs, for example, maybe your Siri on your phone. There are all sorts of models. Really, it's just types of data analysis. We won't go down that rabbit hole because it gets way over my head on the technical side, but that's why I have a good CTO. So I'll skip this slide. This one's good. So basically, the AI is really good at summarization. It's really good at scraping large data sets, comparing data, making recommendations, especially when you provide it with all the inputs. Where it really struggles is when you're what we call data estate, or all that data that's on your computer, or the data that defines a business operation, especially from my purview. When that data isn't readily available, when that data isn't clean, isn't easily interpreted. Let's say you have a big table of data, and it's sales data, and you see lines for each sales representative. Well, maybe the sales figure for some of those lines is blank. Well, your AI is really going to struggle with understanding your business. Your data isn't really solid. And so when you think about what does AI really struggle with, it's principally a data engineering challenge. And so when the data is limited, and when your model is producing outputs that are predictions, then you find yourself in trouble. There are models that are what we call deterministic, that don't make guesses. It just says, what's the data say? Okay, this is the output. And you can interact with it in natural language. So there are two types. There's the ones that make stuff up, what we call hallucination, and that's usually the consumer models. The ChatGPTs, if you ask it some really peculiar questions, it'll give you really peculiar answers, because it's just trying to guess at what is the next right word to say. Now, when you have a different type of model, which is called a retrieval model or RAG model, it has data and it has the answers, and when it doesn't have the answers, it won't tell you if the answer's not there. It'll say, it will tell you when the data is not there, and it won't make stuff up when it doesn't have the answer. And so it's really important to recognize these two types of models that are out there, and when this hallucination problem becomes really serious. Because there are two reasons why businesses aren't using AI. One is because the models will make stuff up, and that can, it's like lemmings, right? Don't just follow what the model tells you if it might be making stuff up. The other, yeah, absolutely.
So, like, on that Grok and
Yes.
search engine AI,
Yes.
is that the second type or the first type?
That would be the first type, where it's what's called a probabilistic model. So what Grok's doing, because Elon Musk purchased a social media company called Twitter, and is good friends with another social media company called Reddit, where all these people get together and they try to answer each other's questions, or they share their perspectives. It's just text blocks. And so you're going to take all that text and you're going to train your model on that. And that's going to be your source of truth, which is kind of a problem, right? If you gave it an encyclopedia and said, only give me the answers if they're in the encyclopedia, that's great. Yeah, but Wikipedia is curated. I have a Wikipedia account, and there are moderators. If you put something that's wrong, it'll be reviewed and reverted. But it's kind of like looking at all the internet and then trying to give answers based on everybody's perspectives. So there are right and wrong answers on the internet. And so these tools such as Grok, ChatGPT, models from Anthropic or Claude you might be familiar with. Yeah, Google's Gemini model, which is moving out in the front of the pack. They're all trained on the public internet. Now, they're also trained on scientific literature and so forth, but when you gather all the information from all these data sources and you pull them all together, the model says, well, which which relationships are the highest frequency? It's about how many people said this as opposed to what is necessarily correct. And so then you get these probabilistic outputs, which can probably be wrong if enough people gave the wrong answer to, 2 + 2 = 5. If you publish that enough on the internet, these models will get trained on. So that's a definite risk. As I mentioned, there are problems, including security, privacy. Anything you put in or a business puts in one of these models, the model will train on it. So obviously they're going to train on more than just the internet. They're going to train on any data they get their hands on. So if I drag and drop this presentation into ChatGPT, ChatGPT owns this presentation and can use this presentation for training their models, which is great. They helped produce it. That said, we still need people, we call it human in the loop. The AI has got to a place where it can start to orchestrate between other tools. So it might have access to your email, for example. Oh yeah, send an email to James. We'd love to see him again. That would be nice. But you could tell your AI to do that. But it's just that when you have higher criticality workflows, as we like to call them, let's say, does this person have this condition or not? You need a human in the loop. So you have a person who's driving the machine rather than exclusively letting the machine drive itself. Now, how much you want the machine to drive itself, you can make that decision as you go, but you want to go case by case when you're trying to solve these problems. This is a framework about whether a business should implement AI. I don't know if it's really of interest to the folks here. I'd like to make sure we all have plenty of time for answering your questions, as opposed to going further down the business applications of AI rabbit hole. That's where I live.
Hear about business applications, or do you want him to skip to the next topic? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, here.
So let me ask
Yeah.
what you're saying here is it worth wasting my time playing with AI, or it was versus the benefit, right? Risk of return on investment.
Yeah, you got to be really careful. And so whether it makes sense to use AI to try to solve a problem as a tool, because like any tool, you could buy a screwdriver and that's going to cost something, or you could buy a Lamborghini, or you could buy a Toyota pickup truck. And well, if you need to tow a boat, you might want to get the pickup truck and not the fancy car. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to AI, you want to make sure that you're using the right tool for the job. And there are many types of AI. At the end of the day, if you don't have really strong data, as you see in the top, and you don't have a repeatable process, then it doesn't make sense to train an AI model, because the AI model doesn't have reliable data with which to make a recommendation and then potentially to take an action if you've given it access to a tool. And, well, you'll be training it once because you don't have if you don't have a repeatable workflow, don't buy the pickup truck if you need to move the boat one time, right? Ask somebody else, rent somebody else's pickup truck. Yeah?
I think another issue is you can spend a lot of time improving a process, developing a process, showing that there's a better way, but a lot of times the people on the receiving end, they just want to do it their way, they don't care about you.
Definitely.
So you waste a lot of time implementing and discovering and documenting and trying to roll it out, but you don't have buy-in from the team.
Absolutely.
You get around a brick wall.
Absolutely, and if you do it wrong, it can be really hard to understand how to use these tools. That's the biggest problem we see right now is so many tools get created, and then you say, okay, everybody, well, you have an AI for sales, and you have an AI for marketing, and you have an AI for finance, and then you turn around to those teams and they say, so I'm already using, let's say, 3 or 4 different internal systems to track the business data, to track the customer data, to track their emails and their interactions with each other, and now you're asking me to learn yet another tool. And how long will this tool be around? So am I going to learn this tool and then
It's obsolete.
then it's obsolete 2 weeks later? And so you have this really big problem when creating this type of software where you have to make it as easy as possible to use. And my approach is to make it human, where I can just tell it what I want. Do this. Like, the AI should be able to operate the software as a tool for me. I shouldn't have to learn how to use, like a router saw if I need a couch moved in. I can buy a couch online and have it moved in, right? Terrible example, but.
I was going to say that it's great for like marketing, where you just need words to put on the website, a good email like Kenny was looking to do. He's going to put it through ChatGPT. But also my husband has put everything, all his scans, all his medical, everything, and it looks at drug interactions. It tells him what he should be doing with, any of his procedures. So it knows everything about him in terms of his medical. So he dumps the entire portal from his medical into ChatGPT, and it keeps an eye on everything for him. So
that is exciting. One word of caution is that there, like we mentioned before, where we had some like really specific things like oil and gas companies trying to figure out where the oil are. There are general purpose models that are going to be trained broadly on the public internet. So they'll say, well, whichever answer was given most in the public internet will be the most likely output answer, because it's the most likely to be right. And so when there's a general purpose trained model, there is inherently risk of making up or hallucinating an incorrect answer because it isn't specially trained.
well, Brock is known for being a Nazi, so.
Oh, yeah. And so you can actually take the language model part of that tool and give it access to scientific textbooks, medical journals, like the Lancet, for example. I believe that's Harvard's medical journal. And you can use those training tools to create this special model that's only going to retrieve insights from those approved sources and give outputs versus just on the public internet. So I wanted a word of caution on that one. Like, I wouldn't use, like when I was rolling out, what did we end up calling it? Basically, Azure Health Data Services Radiology Insights application. Those were specially trained models, but we really tuned them for quite some time to make them really reliable. So there's a risk there.
Well, if you have to look at South Florida, doctors versus ChatGPT,
Always worth having a lawyer, accountant, or medical provider look over your model's outputs. That's what I recommend.
James, thanks for presenting. At this time, what's the most overhyped or misunderstood aspect about AI?
Could you be more specific? So when I think about that, I think about the financial markets. Okay, so I'll just take it down that route. I could respond in many ways to that question. So when you think about, it's especially companies that are being hyped, or the concept is being hyped, and oftentimes people are thinking about these general purpose models that don't necessarily have a reliably practical and repeatable output. So for example, it's possible to ask ChatGPT with those medical records the same question and get different outputs different times, especially as different model versions come out, or if they simply refresh the training data underlying the model in the same version. And so when you think about companies such as OpenAI pursuing going public at I believe it's a plus $1 trillion valuation, or Anthropic going public, raising capital. I think they're raising about $300 million right now privately, probably from Microsoft, etc. You have these general purpose models that don't necessarily have reliable outputs, and the opportunity for those is very uncertain because their competitive set is making their tools available for free. Now, the reason why you want to actually even pursue this general intelligence concept, if you're OpenAI or you're Anthropic, is you're able to get a critical mass of users, and you're able to get a lot of habit built in, just like how most of us use a Google. Right? We will habitually go and Google things. Well, people are building habit around ChatGPT, and so what they're doing actually is they're getting traffic, they're getting user interactions, they're getting data about each of us in order to better serve our needs. So what they can do with all of that attention span that we're giving them is partner with companies such as Zillow in order to more seamlessly connect us with providers of goods and services. So OpenAI on the retail front, like the retail model, the ChatGPT model, they have an opportunity to connect us as consumers with providers of consumer goods and services. And that is the marketable opportunity for them, but they don't have a clear route to actually monetizing that. It seems that the companies that have a specific application of AI are worthy of the hype because they are unlocking something net new. They have a practical application. So for example, if we were to ask Zillow, like, hey, this is what I'm looking for in a house, these are all my filters, could you just email me an update of like the top 3 of the top 10 each week? That'd be great because you're no longer going through an agent or my mother's an agent.
It doesn't mean that agents are bad.
No!
Two of them in the room.
And I'm trying to help them as well. Like that type of tool is very useful, and Zillow can monetize that tool directly by gaining market share and bringing more users in. But OpenAI can't necessarily monetize that relationship with Zillow unless they're able to charge a marketplace fee for facilitating the transaction, or a consulting fee for doing the work with Zillow, like $20 million to work together, which is a drop in the puddle or ocean when you're talking about spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year. Yes?
So the challenge that I see, I work in healthcare technology, and I have these conversations frequently. And the biggest challenge that the clients that I deal with have is they think they're going to go down the street, buy a bag of AI, and drop it into their businesses, and it's going to take formulated outputs from their current systems, ingest it, process it, and give you reasonable outputs that are going to then fit into the remaining systems and applications that they have. And it's just going to be a seamless integration. It's not going to muddle up their workflows. It's not going to add more teams and processes and steps. And that, to me, seems to be the biggest barrier. Because if they're not getting AI as part of an application that they're already using, it's yet another bolt-on application that they need potentially a whole new hierarchy to manage.
Yeah, adopting AI technology is fraught with risk.
Yeah. And everybody wants to say, I'm in AI, we have AI, and AI-based this, AI-based that, whereas people say they want to throw it around because it's the current branding. They think it's going to set them apart. I think that may sound foolish, and that's what about it.
Yeah, absolutely. There are really big risks with AI implementation. If people don't use it, if the data is bad, if you're giving AI access to maybe the wrong tools, you could incur a lot of costs and headaches without actually getting an output.
James,
Yes.
thank you for presenting to us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My question is, I see on Facebook all the time that people are using AI to pick their lottery numbers. Is that necessarily true? Do you know that people are actually winning, or is that AI generated
How much have you
commercials?
lost?
I still buy $5 a week. But I was just curious because I did try my last. Normally I just do the quick pick, and I asked ChatGPT to give me winning lottery tickets.
Did it give you a number?
Gave me 5 sets of numbers.
Oh wow, that's really impressive. So that's a really good example of when the model doesn't have the actual data, and it'll make something up to try to satisfy the answer. There's huge risk if you're doing that in medical technologies, for example. This is very, very scary.
Well, that's why you get the denials from the healthcare system. It's because they used AI to generate your sickness. It said, no, denied.
Yeah.
I've got a letter I'm getting ready to send out, and I went over it, and it's kind of lengthy, so I want to make it a little bit more concise. What kind of model? I know I mentioned this year, I thought about using ChatGPT. You told me about Claude.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between Claude and Chat?
Okay, so
And I want the letter to sound like it's coming from my perspective.
yeah.
Like my thoughts.
Yeah, they're both fantastic tools for those. Those are both what are called large language models. There are small language models as well, but those are models that are trained on really big data sets that run on really big computers somewhere else. So you get to use someone else's computer basically to shorten your newsletter. It's like paying for not even paying for a car, but getting to use it. The difference between Claude and OpenAI is really what they're focused on solving for. OpenAI has increasingly trained their models with data that is conducive to business applications, largely because Microsoft owned like almost half, 49% I believe. The numbers are wrong, but a sizable portion of the company, I think they gave them $13 billion. And so naturally OpenAI's models became increasingly tuned to solve for business applications. Now that is beginning to revert and go the other way, to focus more on consumer applications as they've started to create partnerships with consumer-facing technology companies such as Zillow. Now Claude has always focused on these, what I call the retail or consumer applications of AI. And it's very, very heavily trained on eloquent writing, as opposed to, say, numerical data synthesis and then output. And so your training data sets are different. And so, he cloned me and taught one of us psychology and the other one statistics. We'd rewrite your paragraph differently. So really, at the end of the day, that is the fundamental difference between them. They're both language models, and they're both trained with different data. The training process is the same for both, something called autoencoding or backpropagation. I won't get into that. But when you have your data that's input to the model, again, it's going to look at the strength of the relationship between all the things you put in, compress that into like weights. This is like the strength of the relationship between the concepts. And then you're going to ask it a question, and then it's going to extrapolate based on this network, this weighted network of these concepts. So it's a little cerebral. But at the end of the day, they're both fantastic tools because you can ask them, each of these tools, how should I use Gemini, the new Gemini? How should I use ChatGPT Pro 5.1? You can ask the tools how to use them, and you can also ask them to give an unbiased recommendation about which model that you should use for whatever you're trying to solve for, because again, they're trained differently, and so they have different strengths and weaknesses, and those change with the passage of time.
Do you know how Elon Musk came up with the name Grok?
I believe he took it from Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. It's my Jeopardy win for the day. Yeah, it's Grok means deeply understand something. Yeah. Pretty cool, clever. He's a really good name picker.
I would say that when you're working with the tool, it's understanding how to prompt it properly. And actually, that's going to be a career opportunity as prompters and people who can actually manipulate the AI engine properly. And I was also going to say, if you want to use AI for travel, I'm finding it is great. Like if you want a cabin in the woods with your own private fire pit or something like that, it's a great way to use AI.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
With the rapidly changing AI landscape, how do you stay on top of the industry and how fast it's evolving?
You don't sleep.
Never goes to bed.
No, I use AI to summarize the AI advances that have come out while I've been. Yeah. I use AI almost compulsively. I have so many different applications for it. All of my employees use AI for either engineering or for design or for quality assurance or for copywriting. It's really, really important to use AI to assess publicly available data and to do deep research on your behalf so that you can consume these summaries of information each morning at 5 a.m. when you wake up.
I think now is on cutting edge with AI. Which company or which?
All of them. I don't know a single company that's not on the cutting edge of AI. That's like an established company. And the reason why I say that is that in November we were talking about a concept called Copilot, which is like an AI helper. And that was an evolution of a concept a year or two earlier of a language model that we could just talk to. A Copilot could be a helper. It could help. It could be a doer alongside you. Then, 6 months later, we had a concept called an AI agent, which is an autonomous co-pilot. So it's no longer a co-pilot, it's just a pilot, where you could task it with something, give it an outcome, give it the tools to work with, give it the data, and then maybe some conditional triggers like don't do this, or if this, then that, and then just let it go. And so the advances have been so rapid over the past 18 months. I left Microsoft to focus on my own work after leading all AI applications in industry for them in late July. And it's only continued to accelerate since then. So it's just like Microsoft would be a very good one. Google is a very good one. I'd say they're neck and neck. Meta wants to be as good, and so does Grok. But when it comes to how unbelievably sophisticated all of these technologies have become in such a short amount of time, it's like a race moving at near light speed.
Could Clippy have been considered an ancestor of AI?
I think Clippy and Rosie the robot were both the precursors, the progenitors of AI. When we think about early AI, you could think about. Have you ever done like a scatter chart? Where you have all the dots on the chart and you draw a line through it. It's just a basic predictive model. And so when you think about any type of statistics, that is fundamentally the precursor to AI. Then, layering on statistics, people said, well, conditionals. Well, if this, then that, and you could do a really long if this, then that, to eventually get to all sorts of outputs to almost simulate intelligence, right? And so those were both precursors to AI. And we layered in so many different technologies, such as these two things are certain percentage similar, and so we can classify them. Those are called classification models. Then there was something called NLP, or natural language processing. They gave us a way to interact with the machine. And what we call AI now is actually the aggregation of all these different technologies, these recommender models, these models that we can interact with in natural language instead of punch cards, on and on. And so Clippy definitely played a part, but Clippy was still so limited to a few
Whatever
things.
was in the, right.
But it didn't actually have a language model built into it. And that's really one of the big breakthroughs that we've seen in the past 4.5 years, is that there's a model that's saying, this is the strength of the relationship between all the ideas you taught me, and so that I can guess at the right answer based on everything you've taught me, and how strong of the connection I conceive of between these concepts.
First of all, thank you for your overview and quite a bit of specificity. So this is going to be a tough question, but I know you can shit.
I'll tell you if I can.
So you're going to hear a bit about our four-way test, right? Is it the truth? So my question on AI in general, how do we as humans know to trust it? I mean, that's a very broad question, but because you just alluded to like, okay, it's going to be evolving just like human knowledge is evolving, right? So it's all yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this concept in security right now called zero trust. Now, there's different application of it, but you know, the concept is pretty much the same. You must hold accountable this technology in its infancy, because it's only as good as what it was trained on. It's only as good as ensuring that there's no data lost as it passes through the network, right? Because these ones and zeros are traveling through the interwebs, and there are power companies, and be an outage somewhere. So it is a tool, and so I'd say trust it as much as you trust a hammer. Right? Like, you can hit your hand with the hammer, you know, but you know, I kind of say that jokingly, but we are getting to a point where we're empowering hammers, the use of other hammers, and giving them robotic arms. You know, that's a year, 2 years out where you can ask a robot to do things. It's going to be connected with this type of technology. It all gets layered on, it all aggregates. And we're getting really, really close to a point where you can ask the technology to take some actions on your behalf, and ultimately, whomever prompts the technology at this time is not actually liable, or is only partly liable for the outcome of that prompt. So there's quite a bit of regulatory and legal work that needs to happen. You know, we've never had a car that could drive through a police scene by its own. It happened recently. You may have seen that.
So I'm thinking about AI as an evolving technology, and computing as an evolving technology, and robotics as an evolving technology.
They're all evolving really fast.
And it seems like when they evolve a little more, would we become unnecessary at that point?
Yeah, has Skynet.
That's my answer.
Skynet is real.
The premise behind Skynet is that there's like a security application, so it had a backdoor to everything.
So has Skynet been
2 minutes ago.
activated?
But yeah, we have to be really, really careful. There has been AI applied to warfare, supply chain, logistics. There is AI being applied to threat recognition and neutralizing threats. And so we have to be extremely diligent about vetting the types of tools we bring into our life. And it's very, very hard to hold ourselves accountable to that, because you know, a person like me, I'm just trying to keep up with it all. But yeah, be very diligent. And if ever you have questions about AI or want to brainstorm, especially business applications, it's where I live. I'll be happy to.
Time for one more question.
Told to wrap
Make
it
it
up.
good.
One more question?
One more question.
Well, we were talking about Rosie and the Jetsons and whatnot, and it reminded me of this important fact that I heard about the toaster, that it was the first form of pop-up notifications.
Is there a joke there? So serious.
That was a comment. The last question is, can you share with us briefly, like a problem and a solution with one of your clients? Your company was approached by a client with a problem, and what was the solution that you provided using AI?
Did it work?
Yeah, it works really, really neat. Like, there's a company called Sub-Zero Wolf Cove. They make appliances, like refrigerators
Sub-Zero,
and
yeah.
stoves and stuff. So they had a handful of problems, but their biggest problem was they had a really big bottleneck in their sales pipeline. So it was taking them 5 business days to turn around a quote for a customer, first or second tier distributor, wholesaler, or distributor. And basically that's because it required them to involve folks from pricing, folks from finance. So is this within our pricing guidance? Okay, finance. What are the margin implications of this? Warehouse, where is this product located? And is it close enough to the customer for the freight expense of bringing this to them so, a customer says, hey, I wanted to have 4 burners, and I wanted to have the little red knob, and it needs to have a pizza oven insert. And so you have a whole bunch of people figuring out what fits in the product catalog that matches that description. What is the acceptable pricing based on their pricing rules, their pricing calculators. So we took for them the whole quoting experience and reduced it from 5 business days and 6 different teams to 30 minutes, because it does take time for the customer to ask questions about the type of product they're looking for, and for you to solicit more input from the customer. Oh, okay, we don't have any of the 4 burner ones in stock, but we have the 5 burners and the blah blah blah. And oh yeah, what's your budget? You're looking for between the 10 to 15K for your stove kind of price point, and you can zero in with time to get to a deal that's possible to close, and then the rep can step in and continue doubling down on the relationship. And so we've reduced quote time for them by about 95% and have substantially increased the amount of volume they can move, such that now their manufacturing operations are at capacity, because sales was ultimately their bottleneck.
That's super. Good job.
Thanks. Thank you all very much for having me.
Thank you, James.
Thank you for taking the time to come and speak with us. And in recognition of that, this is for you, and we're going to be donating to the Polio Plus Foundation in your name. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you all.
Okay.